Welcome to part 1 of the factory training review for the Ranger Tug 31 Northwest Edition. In this part, we'll cover a number of the systems on the boat, including power, freshwater, heaters for the cabin and water, the head and waist, propane, and a number of other systems that are available on the boat. Beginning with the battery system, switches for the house, the engine, and thruster batteries are all located under the sink area in the cockpit. There's also a battery parallel switch that can be used to connect the house and the engine starter battery. In case the engine battery for some reason goes dead, then you can parallel those two and get enough power to be able to start the engine. Normally that battery parallel switch would be left off. The house, engine, and thruster battery voltages can be monitored on the analog DC voltmeter that is located on the electrical panel. The DC electrical panel is located near the entry into the mid-berth. This panel has manual switches for the lights as well as breakers for a number of items on the boat. The lower left accessory switch is for the DC freezer in the cockpit. All of these switches in the lower part have resettable breakers so that if they're tripped, they can be reset by pushing the button in. And then there's a set of spare connectors on the lower right. Those last three are not connected to any electronics. In the same compartment as the battery switches are two automatic charging relays, and these are designed to combine battery banks, let's say the house and the engine, while charging is occurring, and then when charging is stopped, it disconnects those banks, with the intent being that if one particular battery goes bad, it can't really affect the others. And then there's a LED light that shows on each of the ACRs that indicates the battery status. So green is good. That means they're all combined and things are working as they're intended during the charging process. Most of the DC electrical systems are protected by these automotive blade type fuses. I think that most people are familiar with. The location of these are two places where they can be found. The house fuses are located in the same compartment as the battery switches, and there's a laminated sheet there that tells what each of those are designed to protect. In this same compartment, you can also find some breakers for the DC electrical panel, for electronics on the dash and on the flybridge. There's also a couple of fuse blocks that are for things like the bilge pump monitors and voltmeters. And these are wired directly to the battery, so they're always on. Also in this area in the cockpit are two 250 amp A&L fuses for the bow and stern thruster. These are quick acting fuses designed for high current applications. There is another set of DC fuse blocks that is located behind the helm, and those are accessed through the top teak cabinet in the V-berth. There's also breakers for the windlass and the head in that area as well. The four house batteries, all 110 amp hours apiece, are located in the port lazarette. Both the thruster battery and the engine starter battery are located in the starboard lazarette. The R-31 is equipped with a combination inverter battery charger. It's located in the port lazarette. The battery charger function is automatically activated whenever the boat is connected to shore power or the generator is running. Also, the red inverter battery charger switch has to be on in order for the battery charger function to be active. When charging, the status light on the control panel is green. The panel display will show the different stages of charging, so starting with bulk, and then as charge progresses, then it moves to absorption, floating, and then full. And again, just as a reminder that the red power switch has to be on for either function of this combination unit, either the inverter function or the battery charger function, to operate. The Northwest edition of the 31 comes with a single 30 amp shore power connection. The contacts on the plug will only fit one way into the receptacle. Once inserted, you twist it slightly clockwise to lock it in place. There's also a ring around that can be screwed onto the threaded connection there to make it even more secure. The shore power cord connects to the starboard side of the rear seat in the cockpit. And then the seat hatch swings out and allows you to check the ground fault sensing module, which is one of the steps in connecting to shore power. So the process for connecting to shore power begins by turning off all the breakers on the boat's electrical panel. We do that so that we don't have a large load all of a sudden coming on when we turn on the power switch. Then we connect the shore power cable to the boat. Then we go over to the dock pedestal and connect it there, and then we turn on the dock pedestal breaker. Coming back on board into the cockpit, we open up that back seat hatch and check the ground fault sensing module. Make sure the power light is green and that there's no fault being indicated. This GFSM module should be tested, by the way, before each trip. So you push the test button, and at which point the green power LED light should go off. The red fault should come on, and the circuit breaker should trigger to the off position. And then once you do that, then make sure that everything's working properly. You can switch that back on again. Okay, so now having gone through all the previous steps, we can move into the cabin now, and we can actually turn on the shore power breaker. When we do that, we should make sure that the shore power light is green. This also has a reverse polarity light if that dock pedestal hasn't been grounded. And then if everything's in good shape, then that line voltage gauge should read 120 volts. The 120 volt AC electrical panel is located near the entry to the mid-berth. This panel has breakers for the microwave, all of the AC 120 volt outlets, and the water heater. There's also a breaker labeled ice maker, but that's not actually connected to anything. The 31 comes with a combination inverter battery charger. In inverter mode, we convert 12 volt DC battery power to 120 volt AC power. The inverter itself is located in the port lazarette. There's a red power switch that connects the inverter to the batteries. On one end of the charger is a 120 volt GFI outlet, so it allows you to have an electrical AC outlet in the cockpit. In order to use the inverter, first off we go to the AC electrical panel, and then we turn off all the breakers, including the shore power breaker. And then we go over to the inverter control panel and we press the power button, at which point we should see the display showing the voltage on the house batteries, and the status LED light should indicate orange. When we're using the inverter, only certain of 120 volt functions are available. So the AC outlets, the wine cooler, which operates off the salon outlet breaker, and the microwave. So those are the only ones that you can use with the inverter. Also, when you're not using the inverter, then that control panel still draws power. So turn that inverter panel off when it's not needed. And so just press and hold the power button, then the unit will beep and the display will turn off. So just a quick review. If we look at the inverter display panel, we have two status types. If the LED is green, that means that the inverter is being bypassed and the charger is being used, and we're on shore power. And if the status light is orange, that means we're using the inverter as an inverter. So we're draining power from our batteries to generate 120 volt AC power. When disconnecting from shore power, we might hear some beeps and see an E03 fault on the inverter control panel. So if this happens, just press and hold the power button for a second to clear the fault. The 31 is also equipped with a single solar panel. On a sunny day is capable of producing up to 6 amps. The controller for the solar panel is located in a hatchway on the starboard side of the cockpit. If we look at the controller itself and we see that the status LED is green, that means the system is on, and if it's a solid green, then it's not producing current. Maybe it's a cloudy day or somehow the panel is being shaded. But if it's flashing green, that means it is producing current. And then you can cycle through the menus and you can see the voltages of the different battery systems, how much current that the panel is producing, a number of other items as well. When underway, the Volvo's D4 320 engine has an alternator that produces current, and that alternator ACR charges the engine battery first, and then the house and thruster batteries. The last set of circuit breakers we'll talk about are these ones on the engine themselves. So they're designed to protect the electronic vessel control system, and that's the system that connects all the internal communications between the vessel's engine, the driveline, the display screens, integrates all the engines and electronics. So if for some reason we can't start the engine, it's possible that these breakers might have been tripped and need to be reset. Moving away from all the different options we have for generating power on board the boat, next topic is the freshwater system. So the R-31 has a 60-gallon freshwater tank and 11-gallon water heater, so a total of 71 gallons of water on board. The gauge that tells you how much water you have left is located in the galley, and the switch to turn on the water pump and the gauge is on the DC electrical panel. The pump for the freshwater system is located under the floor hatch in the galley. One of the maintenance items would be to check the filter for debris, and in order to do that, turn off the power to the pump, open some of the faucets to release pressure from the system, and then this little blue tab can be slid, and that'll allow you to pull the filter housing off, and then the cap itself can be unscrewed, and then the screen can be lifted out and inspected. And so particularly with the new boat, it's good to look at that, and then afterwards every now and then just to make sure no debris gets caught up in there. The hot water heater is in the same area as the freshwater pump, so under the floor of the galley. And it uses hot coolant water that circulates from the engine to heat the water in the tank. And then when the engine is not running, we can use shore power and a water break and a hot water heater breaker located on the AC electrical panel to continue to heat hot water. The water heater has a temperature control, and that's this black knob that's got the plus and minus markings, so rotating it towards the plus side makes it hotter. If you want to winterize the system and would like to drain the water heater, then the gray knob can be rotated clockwise to leave this little gap, and in doing so that'll drain all the water out of the system. If the tank is empty and you turn on the water heater breaker, then internally to the system behind that gray hatch is another breaker that's designed to protect the components. And so if you, after a couple of hours you're not getting hot water, that might have happened, and so you got to remove that hatch, first turning off the power, of course. And then there's this little green element there that has a small red breaker that needs to be reset. There is a cabin heater that works by using the hot coolant water from the main engine. The fan for that system is located on the console at the helm. These two black hoses here from the front of the engine are the ones that circulate the hot coolant water to the cabin heater and to the hot water heater. So if there's a leak that is suspected in that system, in order to retain the coolant water around the engine where it's really needed the most, these two valves can be used to shut off the water that goes to the water heater and to the cabin heater. When the engine isn't running, we have the option of warming up the cabin using the Washdown diesel furnace that's located under an access panel below the refrigerator. The control panel for the furnace is at the mid-cabin area. It's a smart controller, so there's also a Bluetooth app, so you can turn it on and off and change the temperature remotely. The fuel pump and filter for this furnace is in the floor hatch in the salon, and we'll cover removing that panel and doing some maintenance items on that in the second part of this video. The 31 has two electric marine toilets. This is the one in the V-berth. And this one also has a sensor that detects the level in the holding tank, and the sensor displays the colors as either green for empty, yellow for mid-level, or red for full. Both toilets use fresh water for flushing, so the water pump needs to be turned on for the head to function. When the toilets are flushed, that goes into this 40-gallon black water holding tank. You can see the sensors on the side here, yellow for mid-level and red for full. And this is the mid-berth toilet, and it has a flush button that's located on the wall panel adjacent to the toilet seat. The holding tank is normally emptied via the waste cap that's located on the starboard gunnel. There is an option to discharge the holding tank overboard via the macerator pump that is allowed under certain conditions. There is a valve that needs to be opened in order to use the macerator pump, but it is normally required to be zip tied to the off position. If you ever stop by the Coast Guard, this is one of the items that they will check on your boat. If you are using the macerator, then the discharge outlet is located on the starboard side of the boat. So you don't want to run the macerator pump when the holding tank is empty, so just keep an eye on that exhaust port, and if stuff stops coming out, then turn off the macerator pump. The bathroom in the main cabin has a wall-mounted shower head with separate controls behind plexiglass panels that are designed to keep the rest of the head from getting wet. Water from the shower will drain down into a sump box that's located under a hatch in the storage compartment under the bed in the V-berth. And then this sump pump in that box has a sensor that will activate the pump when the water level rises in the box. There's also some maintenance items, so there's a white screen inside that box that collects hair or other debris, so that should be opened and cleaned if needed. There are two bilge pumps that are located in the engine compartment. They operate automatically, even with battery switches and breakers in the off position. They cycle every 2.5 minutes. There are manual switches for these pumps that are located on the DC electrical panel. If these switches are placed in the on position, then the pumps will run continuously. So don't run them when it's dry, so monitor the outflow accordingly. In the forward part of the engine compartment is a high water alarm sensor, and then that is connected to an alarm at the console of the helm station. The stove in the galley operates off of propane that's supplied by tanks that are located in a locker on the swim step. There's a propane fume detector in the galley that has a solenoid control valve located on it. So in order to operate that system, you have to turn on the tank valve manually at the tank, and then in the cabin in the galley you press and hold the button on the fume detector solenoid control section, and then that opens the solenoid valve and allows propane to flow down to the stove. When turning off the system, then it's a good idea to turn off that solenoid and also go back to the cockpit and turn off the manual valve on the propane tank itself. The 31 comes with a Force 10 full stainless steel 2-burner cooktop and oven. The oven has a tuck-away door and a broiler feature as well. There's a thermostat sensor that is on all of these stoves, and as a result, it's a safety feature, so it'll shut off the gas if the flame is accidentally extinguished, which means that if you want to ignite a burner, then you have to keep pressing the control knob in for a few seconds until the thermocouple senses the heat. Then you can let go of the knob and it'll stay lit. On the dinette side of the walkway are located the microwave and wine cooler. So these are both 120 volt pieces of equipment, and so they operate off of the AC panel. The microwave is controlled by a switch labeled as such, and then the wine cooler operates off the surround outlet switch. Underneath the captain's chair is a refrigerator that's DC powered, runs off the house battery bank. There's a controller inside that refrigerator. There, 0 is off, and rotating it around to 7 will set it to the coldest setting. There's also a refrigerator in the cockpit that has similar controls and is also powered by DC from the house battery bank. There is a raw water washdown pump located in the rear of the engine compartment, and that provides raw water to the washdown hose located in the cockpit with the on-off switch that you see here and the hose connection as well. These pictures show the through hull and the seawater strainer for the washdown system. They're located on the starboard side of the engine. There is a hot and cold freshwater shower on the transom, so that water pump has to be on for these to function, and the controls are located behind that small hatch that you see there. An option with the R-31 is a dinghy with a Weaver davit attachment system. The dinghy is held in place at the top with these two stainless steel standoff brackets. They're attached to the top of the transom. And then at the base, where it's attached to the swim step, are another two clips that hold it in place. Although once the dinghy is attached to the swim step, then it can be pulled into place by hand. There is this winch system that is attached to the roof that makes it a little bit easier to rotate the dinghy into position.
Just gonna have tension on the line. And then to let it out, you go backwards here, just like a winch in the trailer. You can go from and back. Same idea, you gotta have tension on the line, and then you release it. Just going up and down on the handle.
The table in the cockpit has two poles that support it. Each of those poles has a small tab that fits into a slot on the mounting plate on the floor. So insert that tab into the mounting plate and then spin clockwise to tighten. And once both poles are in place, then you can pull the tabletop over that and push down on it, and that'll lock it into place. In addition to the large bench seat at the stern, there are two fold-out seats that really open up the cockpit. There's a warning light on the console that indicates when these seats are folded out, so that before you get underway you can go back and put those back into position. In this next video, Ivan will demonstrate how these seats are opened.
And what I do is I just take the straps out of the way, so you can't catch them here and break them. Then we have the filler that would snap right on the bottom here, and this comes up right there. Yep.
Well, that was the end of part 1 on systems. We hope you have lots of fun on your next Ranger Tug adventure.